You're listening to the Things of That Nature podcast. Coming to you from a city that never sleeps is me, your host, Rockshana. I invite you to join me in truly honest, passionate, and fun talks that motivate, invigorate, and maybe inspire. Even though we're no longer in the mile high, the sky is still the limit. Everything and anything goes. So let's start talking about things of that nature. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Things of That Nature podcast. I'm your host, Rockshana, and again, we want to make a difference, change the world, help people see things differently. And today, our guest is someone that I really think is going to do that. He's done a lot. I read his bio. I think I just post the bio on our social media platforms because it's pretty intense. It's pretty legit. Today we have Jesus Campa. Hey, Jesus, how's it going?
Hey, it's going great. Thank you for having me. And thanks for that nice introduction.
Hey, I don't lie on here, and it is pretty legit. I'm excited to see what we end up talking about.
No, one of the reasons I wanted to be on your show was I was really excited about, you're talking about changing the world and making changes and stuff like that. And it's nice to see a younger generation wanting to do that. It seems like people in my generation and older are kind of stuck in their ways.
And then we're the generation that just, what is it? When YOLO came around, it made it officially okay for us to do that.
Right. There you go.
Move out of the ways and just pick things out of a hat. I'm all about doing that. Now, where are you from?
So I'm from El Paso, Texas, originally born and raised. I have lived in different parts of Texas. I spent 2 years in Oklahoma leading I was a state director for the Law Enforcement Council on Education and Training up there, and I oversaw the state law enforcement agency that regulated police officers and police agencies for 2 years. And then I came back to El Paso after retiring after 27 years in the field of law enforcement.
Wow, 27 years.
27 years, seen a lot, and I'm kind of that outliner who believes in change. I've been talking about police reform since 1994. When I first got into the field, I noticed that we needed some changes. We needed to do a couple of things differently and stuff like that. And I vowed that as I continue to move up the career ladder, and that was one of the goals. I became a chief, became a state director for that purpose of redefining law enforcement and kind of changing the way we do things. But it's a hard road, man. And now at 48 years and 27 years later, still got a long way to go. But I figured I could do more behind the scenes than I could do actually, in the front line as a chief or anything like that.
That's kind of like, no offense, but I feel like that's backwards. How do you do more behind the scenes than actually right there in it?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. It's funny because once you become the chief or the state director, you have the opportunity to guide and control things. But in reality, and I don't mean this to be offensive to any police chief or any state director out there. I mean, I have a lot of friends and stuff like that. But in reality, we're nothing more than a puppet to a higher power, that being the city manager, city council, the governor, because you're having to set out their vision for law enforcement, not your own vision. You may have your plans and your ideas, but every 4 years or every 2 years, depending on the form of government you're in, you get a whole new legislative body that comes in and they change their vision. Everybody talks about 21st century policing and moving forward. Well, those are just catchwords that a lot of these politicians use to keep getting reelected. So really nothing changes. I mean, in the last 27 years, the biggest major reform in law enforcement was the use of body cameras. Well, I mean, there's a lot more than that, and a lot of people talk about a broken criminal justice system. Well, the criminal justice system is not broken. It never was. It was designed with a bunch of flaws. It was designed to fit a structure that benefited, for lack of better words, and unfortunately I have to say this, but it benefited the white man, that's the way it went. And it's a system that needs to be completely overhauled. And the only way to do that is to come out from the front line and actually get involved in the political spectrum of trying to ensure that the people with the right mindset are starting to run for office and stuff like that. And the legislators are really the ones who control the laws. They're the ones who write them.
I like how you said that. The people with the right mindset, making sure that the people with the right mindset are the one that are getting elected and getting involved. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, mindset is everything. If you have the wrong mindset, you're not going to accomplish anything. I know there's been times where my mindset has been off, and I'll tell you what, I was stuck in a rut. And now, I think I found my second breath, and we're moving forward. We've got the leadership development program with Leading Through Adversity, and we got a book coming out. We're attending a lot of things to where I think we're making more of a positive change now than when we were actually in the trenches.
Okay, that's cool. Now, what made you want to be involved in the force?
So, I grew up as an only child with a single parent, my mom, raised by my grandmother. We were on the poor side of the tracks. I was always considered the underdog. I was the guy who had a mother with an 8th grade education, no father figure, raised on the poor side. My extended family, well, not all of my extended family, but a major portion of the extended family always believed that, hey, as long as I have a job flipping burgers at McDonald's, if I could even make, maybe manager of the store, they would be really proud of me because they didn't think I could accomplish much. I was like, gee, thanks. Thanks for that vote of confidence. But I guess the guy who was my father figure at the time, it was an uncle of mine, one of my aunt's husband. He kind of took me under his wing, and because of them, I got the opportunity to do things that somebody in my financial situation would not have ever been able to do. And he was a police officer, so I kind of always wanted to echo my life after his, and that's kind of who I followed and used as a mentor growing up. So I just kind of copied everything he did, and he was in the police department, and that's where I got in. And once I got in, I realized that I really enjoyed helping people and making a difference. The funny thing is, we all become police officers when you're a young rookie cop. You become one, and you think you can actually change the world by putting these criminals behind bars and stuff like that. But then you quickly realize that for every one that you put behind bars, there's 6 or 7 waiting to take his place. And then, and it always seems like it's a system that is kind of unjust to a lot of people. Seems like those who shouldn't be punished as harshly as those that should be are the ones who usually end up getting the short end of the stick. So, that's when we decided to move up the ladder and try to make a difference that way.
I see. Yeah, it makes sense. So in your sense, it's like you said, growing up on the other side of the tracks and having someone to guide you and show you but like the better way and how to motivate yourself and move forward versus just, I'm a manager and that's it. That's where I'm stopping. That's awesome. Now you have, I think I'm gonna say this wrong, but it's Leading Through Adversity?
Leading Through Adversity. Mm-hmm.
All right.
It's a leadership development program. Again, one of the things that we found, or that I found in the last 14 years that I've spent in the executive administration of law enforcement, is that a lot of the times leaders are brought in from the outside and given a task to complete. And they're usually brought in from the outside when obviously there is turmoil within the organization. If not, they wouldn't be going outside their realm to bring somebody else in. And I kind of really learned this when I took over my first chief of police job. I was hired to become the chief of police of a very racially divided community, and it was in East Texas. And they weren't going to hire another Caucasian police chief because they couldn't at the time, and they were not going to hire an African American because they just weren't going to. So they kind of settled for the little caramel Mexican guy, and they figured, hey, he's kind of caramel, he kind of like chocolate and white at the same time, so he'll understand both sides. So they brought me in, and I was supposed to change the culture and stuff like that. And at that time, we had a very progressive city manager and mayor and council who wanted change, who wanted us to bridge that gap. I created a program called No Colors, No Labels, initiative designed to remove the preconceived notion that the police are racially motivated. And through that program, we lowered the crime rate. We were fully staffed. We stopped over policing the minority neighborhoods and made it more of an equally balanced policing structure using predictive policing. And we're doing really good, except the fact that you said, how is it that you can accomplish more on the outside than on the inside? Well, as the chief, all of a sudden things were rocking and rolling. And next thing you know, my mayor was voted out. New mayor comes in, fires the city manager, brings in a new city manager. Half my city council was gone, and they wanted things to go back the way they used to be. Stop the community policing, stop doing this, stop doing that. So we kind of took several steps backwards, and we kind of really lost the momentum we had. And it wasn't until after I left, 3 years later, that that community is back in the turmoil that it was when I first got there. And now there's a new mayor who's taking over, a new progressive city manager, and it's really awesome because they keep referencing we need to find another chief like Chief Campa was. We need somebody with that mindset. So with that leadership development program, it's basically designed to teach leaders that, hey, look, just because you're being brought in to an organization and being told that this is what they want, that necessarily doesn't mean that's what they want. It means that those are the catchphrases that they're using. And basically what we do is we're kind of a sounding board for leaders when they're frustrated and aggravated. They can call us up or come onto our platform and basically bounce ideas off of us before they actually send it out to the masses. And we're basically a consulting service that consults with CEOs and chiefs of police and state directors as to how they should approach it, how they should bring it in, the pros, the cons, and stuff like that. We write strategic plans. We do leadership development for young kids from 15 years of age all the way to till whatever. And we do a lot of public speaking on our platform and things like that. So that's what Leading Through Adversity is. It's basically a sounding board for leaders, because a lot of times leaders are kind of out there by themselves and don't have anybody to really talk to.
Right. Oh, you're perfect for I want to say, so the trend of the podcast, because that's a lot what we do. Like I talk about it all the time, and the fact of leading through, having a plan, or just, going to somebody else to be like, oh, like, what should I do? What's my pathway? How should this work? And so I'm going to ask you, now you have a youth program, like you said, you do young kids. How have you seen that work for them, for their development growth?
Well, it's awesome because, right now we have 20 kids in our youth program right now that we're mentoring online. And it's really cool because they have, since I'm an outside the box thinker, they come on and we have this idea, and sometimes it's pretty out there, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
And instead of putting them down, like saying, that's not going to work, we kind of like, okay, so let's think about the pros. How is this going to benefit? How are we going to do this? How are we going to establish it? Okay, cool. Now, what are the cons? And, it's funny because the biggest con in today's world is the noise. We call it the noise, the criticism from everybody else. You put yourself out there with an idea. For instance, I told you earlier, I love your hair. I think it's cool, right? But people in my generation are going to look at it and say, oh my God, what's wrong with that girl? What is she thinking? Why she got purple hair? But it's part of who you are. It's your statement. It's your identity. It's the mood you're in. And it opens up the idea. I see you and I say, okay, good. Outside the box thinker. She's got self-esteem. She's moving forward. She's got ideas. So it depends on how you look at them, right? So that's kind of the things that we do is we kind of feed the ideas and help them grow and mature by creating a strategic plan. For instance, we have one individual who has an idea of how he's going to end racism, and it's like, okay, I mean, how many times have we heard that, right? I mean, Martin Luther King, 43 years ago had a dream, and unfortunately, we're still living in the nightmare part of that dream because we haven't been able to come full circle on it. But he wants to expand on that dream and continue the dream and yada, yada. So we've built a 5-year strategic plan that he can actually go in there and cross off the deliverables and say, okay, this has been accomplished. This has been done. And a lot of that, it involves a lot of public speaking and educating the community and the people and interviewing things. And